Cheers. I wanted to run through a quick video discussion about ratio and proportion before you start attempting some of the questions or looking at some of the examples. So when we're talking about the ratio of something or something being split up proportionally, it's split into a certain amount of parts and one person gets some part and another person gets a different part, or they get a different amount of something. Now it's usually in the terms of money, or sometimes it's talking about ingredients and a mass of flour to a mass of sugar or something like that when we're talking about making a cake or whatever. But when we have something in a ratio to one another, most of the time we want it to, a number is to 1, and we usually have it in this kind of form. So you can imagine it's 5 is to 1, okay? And we put that semicolon in there, and we usually use the terminology, as I said, for that. We usually say is 2 for that. So we say in this case it's 5 is to 1. So for every one part that this person gets, let's say it's person A, for every one part that person A gets, person B gets 5 parts. So if you think of it in something nice and simple, if you talk about sweets, say for example, we got a bag of, let's say we've got 48 sweets in a bag, okay, and we want to split that up in the ratio 5 is to 1. So we've got person A is going to get 1 sweet, person B gets 5 sweets, and you could do it like that, and you could go, every time I take 6 out of the bag, I give 1 to person A, I give 5 to person B. You can think about it like that. Now, the way we want to think about this is in terms of shares. And a lovely way of doing this, as I said, usually what we'll do is we'll add up the ratio, and then we'll figure out what one share would be worth. And then we can figure out whatever all of the rest is. So in this case, there's 5 parts here and there's 1 part here. So that means that there is 6 parts or 6 shares, if you want to think about it like that. 6 shares in this case. And I know that there's 48 sweets and it's split into 6 different shares. So the way to do that, as I said, we can do 48 divided by 6, and that will tell me what one share is worth. And if I know what one share is worth, then I can do anything with that. Then I can figure out how many shares, whatever it is. So 48 divided by 6 is 8, isn't it? So each share in this case is going to be worth 8 sweets. That's what we're talking about, isn't it? So in the bag, I've got 48 sweets. Each share is worth 8 sweets. So person A is getting 1 share. That means they're getting 8 sweets. And person B is getting 5 shares, which means they're getting 8 sweets multiplied by 5, because it's 5 shares, which is 40 sweets. And you can see that it's split up in the ratio, as we discussed earlier on, 5 is to 1. For every 1 sweet that person A gets, person B gets 5. So we've got 8 sweets for person A, and we've got 40 sweets for person B. And I know I've done it right, because if I add 8 and 40 together, I end up back where I started from, 48 sweets. So I'll give you a couple of examples of questions that can come up with these, and then you're going to attempt a few yourselves. So if we talk about money, as I said, that's one that comes up very often. We talk about a prize of €500, let's say, for a raffle or a lottery or whatever. And that is going to be split up between 2 people in the ratio 3 is to 2. So one person's going to get 3 shares, the other person's going to get 2 shares. So again, you can put them in terms of person A or B if you want to. Person A is getting 3 parts, person B is getting 2 parts. So how many parts are there overall? First and foremost, there are 5 parts or 5 shares, whatever we want to say, of the prize. I want to know what 1 part or 1 share is worth. So what I do in this case, I'm going to take the €500 and I'm going to divide it by 5, because that's how many parts I need to split it up into, and that gives me 100, doesn't it? So I've done 500 divided by 5 parts, and so each part is worth €100. So person A is getting 3 parts, so that's 3 times 100, nice and simple, giving us €300. And person B is getting the rest, 2 shares, each worth €100. And again, I can check that I'm right by adding the 2 of these together, and I know I've got 500 is what I started with, so I know that I've shared out evenly. You imagine you did this and you ended up with 600 or 700 here, you know you've made a mistake, because we didn't have that much at the start. Last ones on these then. If we have a fraction, when we're talking about ratios, usually we put them in terms of a whole number. So if you're given a ratio with 2 fractions in it, and we want to put it, and it's usually, the question usually says, I want to put this fraction as a ratio of whole numbers. Ratio of whole numbers. And all we got to do, nice and simple, is we find our common denominator, of whole numbers. We find our common denominator, we multiply each fraction by the common denominator, and we'll end up with whole numbers, and then we put it in its lowest term then as best we can. So 3 and 5, the common denominator there is 15, because 3 goes into 15 and 5 goes into 15. So I'm going to multiply each fraction by 15. And when I do that, I end up with 15 over 3 is to 15 over 5. And then I can divide those, 15 divided by 3, because remember our line in our fraction just means a division. 15 divided by 3 is 5. And 15 divided by 5 is 3. And 5 is the 3, is the ratio here. Now, look, have a look. We've got 1/3 and 1/5. A third is bigger than a fifth, as I hope we know. As if you think, if I've got a circle, I split that into 3 parts. A third, I know it's not perfect, but a third is much bigger than a fifth. You can imagine if that's split up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A third is much bigger than a fifth. So you would expect this number in the ratio to be bigger than this one, and it is. So just something to keep in mind as well. So you have these two now, a couple of examples there of how the ratios work. Look at the examples in our textbook and attempt the questions that I've posted up online for you. Thank you very much.